Hello everybody. Welcome to our first video tutorial with the Mini Make It Series 2. So excited to get started with you guys on this. We've got a couple new members, some returning members, and I think this year is going to be a lot of fun with these cute little inserts. So super excited. I feel they're just a little bit different. But very stylish for your home. So, okay, so let's get started. In your kit, you will have a welcome letter. It just talks about the importance of being creative, setting time for yourself, etc. And then every month you will get an insert like this. And it will just, give you your basic what you're getting. Write yourself on the calendar, where to find the video. The QR code takes you to the Facebook group. Let us know if anything arrives damaged or missing. And then always post a picture in the group or on your page and tag us in it to inspire others. Because when we have the courage to step out and share our work, you are inspiring the next person to do the same. And it's just this really great circle of creativity and inspiration, I call it. So some important links there, and if you have any questions, concerns, or issues, my email's here. That's the best way to get a hold of me. At the top, it does give you a image to show you how I painted it, but remember, these are your inserts. It's your project, so feel free to mix up the colors and do something different. So today's video, well, December is going to be full of videos because we have the base to paint and then the 2 inserts. So don't feel overwhelmed. I know it's a busy month. Take your time. Maybe just do the base, and then after Christmas or during the Christmas holiday, if you need something to do, work on the other things. So don't feel overwhelmed by the videos that are coming out. I'll put a video out separately for each of the bases, so that's kind of the other thing, is that will feel like there's a lot coming out, but it's just because there's the optional bases there that we want to have videos for. And then we'll do the 2 videos for the 2 separate videos for the inserts that you got with your initial box. Okay, so today on the insert I did share a picture of this that is just for the purpose of the insert. It's the base of your choice. So just because you see a picture of that doesn't mean that's the base that you got. Unfortunately, I didn't take a picture and change up the insert, and I apologize for that. So those that got the round oval, I didn't include that in your box, and I apologize for that. And then these are the 2 inserts that came into the box. So okay, let's get started. For this one, we are doing the rectangle base, and I am going to use kind of a creamy white. It's called Navajo White from Benjamin Moore, and a balsam green. I use house paint for my projects, for those of you who are new, because I am in a rural area, a very rural area, and am unable to get paint at my whim, should I say. And so I've decided to just use my local hardware store and get little sample bottles of paint. Now, the sample bottles come, just to get off track just a little bit. Sample bottles come like this. They're $6.99 or $7.99, I can't remember. And they are 8 ounces. So that's pretty comparable to a large bottle of paint that you would get at a craft store. Now, I did order these bottles and lids from Amazon just so I could keep them all in a bottle like this. They're easier to transport because I host classes, and easier to use. I don't like those other bottles because I feel like anyways, the colors that I give you come from a Benjamin Moore paint palette, so just to be aware of that. If you want to have a comparable in another brand, let me know and I can find that for you. You can find the comparable. Okay, so your pieces come like this. The masking tape just holds these pieces together so that in transport, like the leaves and stuff aren't going to break. And so you'll see that throughout the year is they come like this, they come shrink wrapped. And from this moment forward, there will be in envelopes in a smaller package since we're just getting the insert part. Okay, so let's get the timer set so to keep myself on track. The first thing you want to do is just remove the tape and pop out your pieces carefully so that we don't break them. You can reuse this masking tape, which I recommend. So I'm just going to kind of stick that there. It does get a little bit curly after you pull it off, and that's why I recommend sticking it on something just so it doesn't break or doesn't curl up on you. Okay, so you have your frame here. Well, let's start with your base. You have your base here, and it does have the score marks on it that indicate or give you that look of a shiplap. If you don't want that look, you can use the back, right? You have that blank slate that will give you just that solid look for your frame if you want to. Use that. And then you have the small frame on the outside and then the small frame that houses the insert on the inside. And there's score marks to help indicate where those are. Now in this piece we have the stand for the back. This little piece is part of the stand, so don't lose that. There's that piece that's part of the stand. And sometimes these require a little bit of a wiggle or a little, you have an X-Acto knife or a box cutter. Sometimes I just need to just get in there and press on the tab that holds those pieces in to break them out. There we go. So there's that. So you need both of these little beads or tabs. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this piece of tape just to hold them down. I'm not going to paint them, but I don't want to lose them, so I'm just going to use this tape to kind of keep them out of the way. All right, and then this piece I just need to so there's the little greenery that sits on top there. That out. I'm going to use this tape here. See how it curls? So you kind of want to be careful. And I'm going to tape this down just to help me hold it while I paint. I'm a big proponent of masking tape holding pieces while we paint them. It makes it so much easier. Okay. So I'm going to do something a little bit different because, well, that's how I like to do it. I have a hard time painting the same thing twice the same way. This one I painted the base white and the frame brown. I'm going to just flip-flop that. I'm going to paint the base brown and the frame white. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this antique wax. Now this antique wax is not a Benjamin Moore paint. This is the one thing that I do buy from Walmart. It is called antique wax at Walmart, and it is a wax and a stain, a water-based stain in it. So it produces a really pretty faux stained look. And I don't have one of the original bottles, I think. But I will share that picture in the group again, just to show you what that looks like. It's a Waverly product that you can get at Walmart. I've been using it for years and so glad they haven't discontinued it. I thought they were going to, but they brought it back. So for this, because it's a stain slash wax, I'm going to use a baby wipe, and I'm going to wipe it on just like I would any other stain. Just give it a good wipe. Now this baby wipe method you can use with any color. So if you don't have this Waverly wax and you want a brown stained look, you can use a dark brown paint. Works just the same. You just get something wet or damp, a wet rag, a damp old cloth, and rub on your color just like you would a stain. A lot of times I'll do this like with a white paint, where I kind of want a whitewashed look. The reason I use this Waverly wax is because I really love just the color it gives, but you could do this with any dark brown, light brown color you have in your kit, in your stash. If you don't have this Waverly wax paint, I highly recommend it though, because it is such a pretty brown, in my opinion. So we're just going through and getting this whole thing finished up here. Let's get this last little bit. And that's it. That's all we need. Now, if you're going to paint your background like I did, a couple things. Paint is super porous and really likes to soak up the paint. So you kind of want to have a little bit of water in your brush. Just kind of wiping these edges off a little bit, making them a little more brown. You want to have a little water in your brush. Just, you know, dip it in the palette or dip it in your cup, tap it off, get your paint and brush it on. And you can just paint the whole thing. I like to keep my edges clean, you saw that, so I typically will wipe them off after I'm done painting. And then the other thing is if you want these shiplap lines to be really prominent, like mine here, and you've got paint in them, you want to find something sharp like this. This is just a pointed tool, stabbing tool, I can't remember what it's called. It eludes me every time, but I got this at the dollar store. But you can use a needle, a push pin, a safety pin, whatever you have that's got a sharp edge, something small, not too fat, and you're just going to set it down in that line and drag it across. And that's going to pull out any excess paint that you have in your piece, and give you that really nice sharp line here to indicate that that's a shiplap line. And then if you're painting, most likely you're going to want to do 2 coats. Do one light coat, let it dry, give it a light sanding, and then do a second coat. But that's how you do it if you're going to stain your background. So I'm going to put that to that side, and we're going to grab these pieces. I'm going to get my white, my Navajo white. And for small pieces like this, I like to use makeup wedges. And what I'll do is I'll dip it in the pot or the main part of the paint, and then I tap off any excess. The key here is not to have too much paint on your makeup wedge. And the reason for that is so that our goal is to just paint the top of these pieces. We want to keep those edges nice and clean and dark, to just help create that 3D look. Now you're welcome to paint the edges if you want. It does require a couple coats, just because they are kind of a burnt edge, and so that does, especially if you're painting them white, require a couple extra coats, but you're more than welcome to paint those edges as well if you want. Um, for the frame, I think it would be fine to paint the edges, and I've done it in previous projects. But if you are doing something small and delicate, I don't recommend it because it is such a lot of work, and it tends to get super messy and kind of clumped up. And in that, I mean like little letters, things like that. I keep my edges clean. And so just doing this tap tap method really helps with the makeup wedge because it's got that flat surface. We're just tapping the top of it, keeps those edges nice and clean. Now when you're doing the tap tap, you want to just use a medium to soft tap. If you tap too hard, that makeup wedge is just going to squish over the edge of your piece, making your edges painted anyways. And sometimes that just happens. Sometimes I get in a rush, I tap too hard, and now I have my edges painted. Before it dries, you can always just use a baby wipe or a wet rag to remove it. If you don't catch it before it dries, you can remove the paint with a sandpaper, or what I like to do is just take like a black Sharpie or something and just mark over it, especially if it's a white color. Now you can kind of see I did go over the edges just a little bit right here. Here's another one. So this is where I take that baby wipe and we're just going to wipe it away and clean that up. This is a frame piece that's super easy and simple, so if you wanted to paint the frame on all sides, you definitely could. It could give you a really pretty look. I'm going to keep mine clean. So a super light coat. This looks super splotchy. We've got some yellowing going on from the wood, but that's okay. We're going to come back with a second coat on that in just a minute. The next piece is going to be the greenery. And I am going to use a makeup wedge for this. With a soft tap, tap, tap on top. There we go. Again, it's kind of splotchy. We want to do nice light coats. That first coat always looks the worst. Kind of think of it as your primer. It's getting the wood ready for that second coat that's really going to give us the solid color that we're looking for. Okay, let's bring this back. I'm going to take my sandpaper. I've just got a piece of sandpaper. It's a 400 grit, something soft. You don't want to use something too heavy. A 220, a 300, I think it's a 3 or a 320. 300 or a 400 works well. I'm trying to see what this one is. Just to give us a soft sand down. And the reason I like to do this is, one, it helps sand out any brush strokes that we might have. Two, wood doesn't like water, as you all may know, and just general things. And so when we paint wood, it's going to create these tiny fibers to stand up on themselves, that they expand with water. And so it can make your piece feel rough, where when it started it didn't. And that's just the natural part of wood, so don't be too concerned if you're like, geez, I just painted it and it feels super rough. That's what happens. And so that's why the sanding step is important, to get it back to that smooth surface so it's ready for that second round. And so when you're feeling your piece, if you feel a rough area, you can sand that down. When you're sanding, you just want to do a soft sanding. It does not require anything heavy. You will remove a little bit of the paint, but you don't want to sand so hard that you take it back to the bare wood. All right, so I don't need a second coat on my backer. If you wanted to have a darker stained look, you could go through and do a second coat at this time, but I'm happy with how dark it is, and so we're going to call that one done. And then these guys, when you're sanding delicate pieces, just make sure that you hold on to them nice and tight so they don't, you're sanding them and they don't break. Nice and slow. Like I said, it doesn't require a really heavy sanding, just something super light to knock those fibers down. And now we're ready for our second coat on here, which is going to give us that nice white or creamy white look. These straightaways, I'm able to just kind of drag that makeup wedge down that line. If it hadn't been straight and I was doing something else, I wouldn't brush on my color like that, but these straightaways are perfect for that. Just a soft hand, just kind of lay in that brush there. And as you're painting, don't feel like you can't move your piece around. Move those pieces to accommodate your brush strokes, your tapping, to make it easier. A lot of times, especially at like classes, I'll find people who, are trying to do this or trying to contort their body to the piece, and then it ends up being not exactly what they want. So always just kind of move those pieces to fit how you paint. All right, so going back to painting the edges of these pieces, I do want to caution you about painting the inside of the frame that's going to hold your insert. I would leave that empty or blank, unpainted, simply because if you get too much paint inside this piece, you may run into issues with the inserts not fitting. So just take note in that. Leave the insert of this piece blank. You're not going to see it anyways with the insert sitting in there, so it doesn't need to be painted. All right, let's get our second coat on here. This is another reason why I love having my pieces taped up, because it allows me to sand those delicate pieces without breaking them. When you're sanding, I also recommend just leaving your piece on the table for stability. Don't lift it up and try and sand on your hand. There we go. Perfect. Okay, so that's it. We have just finished painting all of our pieces. And so now we can start putting things together. And I am just using a all-purpose glue, a Titebond. The brand is Titebond, but it doesn't matter what the brand is. An all-purpose glue. And the only recommendation on the glue that for you guys is that it is clear drying. Simply because there are going to be times where you're going to have glue that kind of squirts out the side, and you don't want it to be yellow or a big clump of color that is going to ruin your project. So just make sure it's clear drying. You can use all-purpose glue, super glue, craft glue, clog, guys. Really no requirements there. Now we are dealing with wood, but that does not mean you have to use a wood glue. Specific wood glue is for structural elements like tables and chairs and things where you're handling the element a lot, so it has to be super strong. And it's more expensive, so don't feel like you have to go out and get wood glue. A lot of times too, the wood glue that you get doesn't have, oh, I just have a big clog in here. Let me grab a different bottle. A lot of the wood glue out there doesn't dry clear either. It has a yellow tint to it, so be careful of that. Just make sure the bottle says clear drying. Okay, let's see if I can get one of these bottles to work. I buy the big bottle of glue because I teach classes, and so I refill these little bottles for my class, and they like to clog up a lot. So just a small amount of glue. You don't need a lot. The more glue you have, the longer it's going to take to dry. The more glue you use also creates like this, I don't know, it's hard to explain it. I always think of it like it's hydroplaning, but it likes to slide around. It creates this very slippery surface with so much glue that it just is like slides and moves. So you just want to be careful. You also don't want to do too small amount that it's going to just kind of pop off eventually. So I'm just running my fingers along the edges. I pressed it onto the piece, and now I am just kind of cleaning up any glue that squirted out the edge. The other thing I recommend having is some clamps to help hold pieces down, especially frames. Skinny little frames like this, when we get them wet, sometimes likes to become a little warped or wobbly, but once we glue them down, they tend to just stay and they're perfect. So if you get a piece that feels a little warped or wobbly, just continue on until you get to that gluing process. And if you're feeling like, you know what, this glue isn't holding it, I'm happy to send a new piece if it just isn't going to work out. So sometimes as I'm clamping down, I find that it shifts a little. So we just always want to double check all our edges and make sure that everything is the same. So I did get a little bit of glue on the inside, and I'm okay with that. You can see there's a little here. You can wipe that away or just leave it if it's clear drying. I'm not going to see that here in just a minute anyways. There we go. All right, so let's get a little glue on this frame here. So the frame part of this project shouldn't take you more than 30 minutes. If you're new to crafting, it might take you a little bit longer on some of the inserts, but these frames are fairly simple. Just a couple pieces to paint. You can get detailed and add some distressing and whatnot to your piece. The other thing is you can use do some decoupaging, add some paper to your pieces, which I might do in one of the inserts coming up, just for something different to do. So as we're lining up the insert piece, the frame for the insert, let me just bring this up. the score mark that you see here is for the inside of the frame. And so when you're laying this in, the key is to not see any of that score mark. That means it's in line perfectly. So I tend to kind of line up here. I'm looking on the inside. I don't see anything. Then I rotate it and look on the inside here. And I can see it just needs to shift just a little bit. So we're just going to see it just there. That looks good. I'm going to rotate it over here. And I'm just going to hold this for a second. I typically have a weight or something heavy to hold it. This one, you can't really clamp the one on the inside, so you do just got to give it a little bit to set up. That's the nice thing about super glue. If you're using any sort of super glue, it sets up super fast, so you don't really have to hold it. The downside is you don't have any wiggle room. Because it sets up super fast, you have to be kind of on point where you're going to place it. Otherwise, it is what it is type thing, right? You placed it and that's where it's got to go. Okay, so I'm going to try and wrap this up. We are nearing the 30 minutes for the video itself, but I did chit chat for a little bit on the front end, but I don't want to keep you guys too long, so try and speed it up here. Okay, so there's really no top or bottom. They're both the same. So as you're putting in your greenery, it can go here or here. Right? So we'll remove the tape, and I'm going to add a couple drops of glue to the greenery. And really just putting glue on those big pieces there. And then this just sits right up in there. Sometimes you got to give it just a little wiggle, find just the right spot. There we go. There we are. So this is going to sit right along that edge. Does take just a little bit of a wiggle to get it just right. You know, if you're shifted left or right too much, these little two tabs right here aren't going to sit down in this arc, and it's going to be hard to insert. So you just kind of want to go right or left to find that sweet spot and just give it a little press in. It is a tight fit. And there we go. Okay, so I'm going to remove my clamps. We've got all of that, and that is the frame. So what do you guys think? I think I like the white better, but I also love the stained color. Anyways, that gives you an idea of what you can do, something different with the frame if you want. If you love that stained look, I typically do, but I think I love the white. I'd have to see some inserts in it. We'll see. Okay. Now that that's set up and dry, I'm going to flip it over and talk about the stand. This is the last part. So this is the stand that gives us that hinge stand to be able to stand it up by itself. You don't need to use this if you're going to have it leaning on something, a bookshelf or something. Or you can use a plate stand for these. I don't have one here. So that's up to you. However you decide. You can also hang this. So if you wanted to add, you know, some glue here, some hot glue, and you wanted to add a string, you could do that. You could even glue this at the top and use this as like a sawtooth hanger, and you could use it to hang it with a nail. You could do that. If you're going to hang it upright, though, the insert will need to use some sort of sticking mechanism, like a Velcro or poster putty or something, because if it's sitting upright, that stand or the insert will fall out. So keep that in mind. It is possible. You just might need to do a little more work, and if you have any questions and you want to do that, please feel free to message me. Okay, so back to the stand. How does this work? So this piece is going to get glued here. Let's flip it around, sorry. And then these little pieces are going to get glued in here. Hold on, I have a little piece of wood kind of sticking out from when I broke it out there. There we go. So this is going to sit in there. This is going to sit in on this side. And then this comes in. Oh, you gotta do it a certain way. There we go. So they're going to sit like this. And then this stays glued together. Hold on, and it creates this hinge. Okay. So we want this hinge to hang down just a little bit past this edge here. And the reason for that is you can have it be right at the edge, or you can even have it be higher. But what that's going to cause is it's going to cause your stand to lean more. So the further up it is on your board, the further it's going to lean. The lower it is, the more upright it will be. If that makes sense. The lower this is, the more upright. The higher it is, the more lean you will have. So I recommend lining this bottom of the stand up to the bottom. Okay, and I'm going to take it apart. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to glue these little guys. I'm going to put glue on this edge, that edge, and the back edge. I'm going to glue in one to start with. Okay, and then I'm going to slide this in. I'm going to kind of see where I'm at. Now, just eyeball it from left to right. It doesn't have to be perfect. If you're offset just a little bit, no big deal. It does not have to be perfect. You obviously don't want it over here or here. You do kind of want it centered. Okay, so now that we've got this here, okay, I'm going to take this piece and I'm going to put some glue on the back. You can mark it with a pencil once you have it where it's at, but kind of just fly by the seat of my pants here. So I'm going to slide this in. I'm going to hover this over, see where my bottom is, and I'm going to just let that drop. Okay. So we got that piece down. Next, I'm going to put glue on this little tab here, this little tab, and that side there. I'm going to slide it in on the other side so it's on here already. And I'm going to slide this one in. And I'm going to push that tab into the hole there. Now this does have wiggle room, so that's okay. Now we just want to make sure that we're right where we want to be. And this is why using just an all-purpose glue is great for this, because it allows me a little flexibility in placement. There we go. It doesn't have to be perfect, just kind of get it where you want it. So now this is at the bottom. I kind of was able to shift it a little bit. I want to press these little tabs really well into the base there and give it a good press. Press everything down nice and well. Okay. Now when you're going to stand up, this has got a little cutout, so it kind of slots into that opening there where we saw the little cutout on the base. Okay. So now go to stand it up. There we go. And it creates this hinge. Now it's not, because this is square and these are round, you just kind of want to take it easy, but once it's up and it stands perfectly, and it's ready for your insert. How cool is that? How cool is that? So let's, oh, see, I didn't wait long enough. If it pops out, I'm just going to add some glue right down in that hole. Let's add a little more. I didn't wait long enough, you guys. I was impatient. This piece, you really want to make sure that it gets some really good glue so it doesn't pop out on you. But let's just see what this looks like with an insert. Good, that is pretty, isn't it? With the stained look on the background. But that's it. That is the rectangle shiplap base. I hope you enjoyed crafting the base. Super easy. When you get it finished, make sure to post a picture in your group. We had about, so in the group we had the rectangle base and the scallop base were the only two that got chosen, and it was about half and half. So it's kind of cool to see what everyone likes. Nobody chose the easel, which I understand. That one was a little taller and a little bit bigger. These are a little more compact, so it fits nicely into small spaces. But anyways, all right, so I'm going to let you guys go. That took me about 36 minutes with me gapping. It always takes me just a little bit longer, but anyways, I hope you guys had fun, and I look forward to crafting the inserts with you in the next few videos. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to email me or post questions in the group. The ladies in there, I know from previous groups, are all super helpful too, so you can post your questions there as well. All right, guys, I hope you have a great day, and we will talk to you later. Happy crafting. Bye.